Okay, panelists, are we ready to begin? All right, then
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, just making sure everyone's on. All right, welcome to the Saddlebrook School District's virtual forum on the March 14th bond referendum. My name is Toni Violetti. I'm the superintendent of schools here. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We appreciate you taking the time to learn about our new plan to make the critical upgrades that we need to our school buildings. When voters turned down our proposal, oh wait, did I? No, I didn't. Okay. When voters turned down our proposal in December, we went back to the drawing board to trim down the project list by over $40 million. The district leadership and the Board of Education focused on selecting projects for a March referendum that prioritizes fixing our current school buildings and also receive the most state aid. Tonight, you'll hear directly from the district's professional advisors about what's included in the March 14th bond referendum and how we can make these important updates without burdening residents who pay the taxes. These experts will discuss what the bond proposal could mean for the future of our school and community. There'll be plenty of time for questions, but before our panelists share their expertise on the bond referendum and answer questions, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping items. You're going to type any questions into the Zoom chat. Your questions will be directed to the appropriate panelists, and we'll get to as many questions as we can before ending around 8:30. If we don't get to your question, we will follow up with a response by email. This forum is being recorded, and it will be able to be watched later on the district's bond referendum website, which is sbpsnj.org/referendum, Saddlebrook Public School, New Jersey, sbpsnj.org/referendum. Speaking of our bond referendum website, it's also an excellent source for learning about the March 14th vote. The website has a frequently asked questions page, it has an overview of the projects page and voting information, and lots of other detailed information for our community members to look through. So we're going to get started by talking about why we're back again with another bond referendum. We heard the community's feedback after the December referendum failed, and we developed a new plan that prioritizes fixing our current school buildings while utilizing the timing of our bonds that are being paid off. And this is all possible because of the state aid. Now with me is Mr. Ray Karate, our business administrator, and he's going to talk more about the state aid.
Thank you, Ms. Violetti. State aid. We can't afford to leave this money on the table. If voters approve this March 14th bond referendum, that means the state would cover 29% of the project costs. That's $4.2 million. That state aid combined with expiring debt from our last major school renovations means that the owner of a home assessed at Saddlebrook's average would actually pay less than they're currently paying in school debt taxes. The only way we can capture that money is through a voter-approved bond referendum, and Saddlebrook either uses it or we lose it.
Thank you, Mr. Karate. So like I said, we did listen to the community and we've pared back the project list to focus on projects that are most critical to the infrastructure of our school buildings and those that are also eligible for the maximum amount of state aid. So we tried to be as strategic as possible. This new proposal does not include the middle school addition. It doesn't include a second turf field and lights, and it also does not include the media center at Smith School, mainly because without moving the sixth graders out of Smith School, we're unable to create the media center. These are all items that we could revisit possibly though at a later date, and be on the lookout for some community roundtables that we will be hosting after the March vote to see how we can resolve some of these issues as well. The proposal before voters on March 14th does include projects at all of our schools that really simply cannot be put off any longer. So with us, we also have our district architects. We have Anthony and Michael Gianfrancaro, and they're going to tell you a little bit more about this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tony. As mentioned, the proposal includes essential infrastructure repairs and projects. We're looking at a couple different things. One is based on the photograph that you see there, part on the screen there. is upgrading the ceilings and lighting in the corridors. What you see to the left is some existing ceilings, and you can see a project that was done, we completed recently, that shows how much brighter and welcoming the corridor is. We're also doing other projects like roofing. And just to understand that these roofs that we're proposing are in addition to the roofs that we've done over the last several years. These are new roofs not new roofs, but they're additional roofs that have not been done in well over 20 years. So at this time, we're going to upgrade those roofs to prevent any leaks and damages. We're also going to do windows, doors, and lighting replacement at every school in the district. We're going to do some bathroom or toilet room renovations. You could see at the high school, middle school, the picture to the left is actually one of the bathrooms in the upper level. Right now, it's being used basically as a storage room because a lot of the fixtures don't work, as you could see in the one picture. And the picture opposite that to the right is a fully renovated bathroom. And you'll see it has new tile, new lights, new ceilings, new partitions, and there are new fixtures there. We're going to do some security upgrades at all the schools. Some of the schools don't have the security window that we propose, and this way that will create a safer environment for the students and the staff. You'll get an opportunity to look at someone and vet them before they enter the building. And the other upgrade, I know we're doing there was an interior renovations that we're doing at the Washington School. You'll see we have some on the upper level, we have some plaster falling off the walls. We're going to renovate that space. And lastly, we're going to do some interior renovations at Coolidge School, which the Board of Education has now taken over. And that includes some ADA upgrades, putting in an elevator and fixing up the boilers and making that space a usable space for the district. Matthew, if you want to take it from there.
Okay, thank you. So one of the projects being proposed within the referendum is the renovation to the classrooms on the second floor of Washington School. These will be used, they're currently not being used, and the goal is to be able to use them for, in order to expand the pre-K program throughout the district. In the immediate future, that would mean being able to eliminate the wait lists that currently exist to, for the pre-K program. But there, there's also rumors, going around the state that there's possibility of the state eventually mandating preschool or pre-K. If that were to ever come down the line, these spaces absolutely need to be utilized by the district. But in the immediate timeline, the benefit here would be to eliminate that the waiting list. The only current issue is that they need renovations. They need ceilings, lights, casework floors, as well as toilet rooms within the classrooms, and an elevator in order to provide handicap accessibility. So that's a big project. Another project being proposed within the referendum is the conversion of the athletic field at the high school, middle school into a turf field to include lights. The benefit of this project is that it will provide a safe and consistent playing surface for not only the students in Saddlebrook, but also all the rec programs as well. And in addition to providing a safe facility, the benefit of turf and lights is the added time that the children will be able to use the field. No longer will you have to worry about resting the field after rain or from one sport to another. You know, you could have a high school football or lacrosse game going on, and bring rec soccer on right behind them. So those are both big districts, or big projects that we're proposing.
Well, and that turf field will certainly make my job a lot easier, especially when we're dealing with all of those weather conditions and grassy conditions. And, one of the things that I'm excited about is really trying to improve the sports experience for not only our high school kids, but the recreation kids, the community. Our phys ed programs are going to be able to use it. As Matthew said, grass fields are often muddy and uneven. And if it rains, we're debating on whether we can get on it and practice on it. We're constantly using the maintenance crew guys when they could be doing other things and need to be doing other things to constantly seed it, to take care of the watering, the fertilization of that. All takes costs. It all costs money. It all takes a lot of time. And the turf field not only gives you like a much more smoother, level, carpety type of feel, it really adds to the consistent playing surface of the game. The soccer ball rolls true. The lacrosse ball is easier to pick up without worrying about the leaves and the divots and the weeds and the holes. Not only is it a little bit easier on your ankles and stuff, so we're hoping that community reputation, will really take part. Adding a Friday night football game is something that, our kids talk about. We go to many other schools and see the facilities, and we see what they're playing on and how many of their students come out, and teachers and community members. So, we're hoping by that the addition of the turf and the lights, really brings the community together on that Friday night. So, like I said, it's going to benefit not only our kids, but the whole community.
Yeah, absolutely. That is Mr. Chris Iannello, our athletic director. Thank you, Chris. And as he can attest, maintaining a grass field is not just time consuming, but it's also costly because of the maintenance issues. So a turf field will provide many benefits, including for drainage. And I know that that's also a big concern of the community. So Anthony, can you please elaborate on how these drainage issues will be addressed with a new turf field?
First of all, this was discussed also during the previous referendum. There's been a lot of concern of the neighbors in the area being flooded by any changes made to the site. So when we're building this field, right now there's a crown in the field, and what we're going to do is cut that off because you don't need as much slope to the field as you would. You don't need it with turf as you would with natural grass. So right off the bat, we take that volume away. We're also going to put several feet of stone underneath this field. And what that does is when it rains on the field, it will go in and store itself underneath the field until it drains out slower. So it'll actually make the drainage in the area better than it is today. And these regulations are set forth by the county soil conservation district. They're set forth by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. So these plans will be reviewed by them, and we will not be making the site at the high school, middle school, any worse than it is today. Just the opposite. We're going to make it better by allowing this storage of water in the field or underneath the field. So there'll be a zero increase in volume, and that will definitely benefit that local area in and around the field.
I want to just take a moment to acknowledge that we have started to receive some questions, and we will get to them. We're going to first review the financial and state aid. So in case you missed the beginning, we did share that we will address the questions once we're done with the slides. So we are going to transition over to the finances. So we shared about the projects. So the total cost of all the projects is estimated at $14.4 million. If voters approve the referendum, then Saddlebrook School District will receive nearly $4.2 million in state aid. So we're here to talk to us more about the finances and how these projects can all be done without increasing the school debt tax rate. We have financial advisors Danielle Marino and bond counsel Everett Johnson, along with our business administrator Ray Karate. So Ms. Marino, you are up first, please.
Thanks, Tony. When a district holds a referendum, it asks to borrow money by selling bonds. The district will use property taxes to pay back the debt over time. And in Saddlebrook's case, that would be 20 years. If voters approve the March 14th referendum, the district will receive $4.2 million in state aid, and that's 29% of the project costs. That state aid combined with debt that will soon be paid off means that Saddlebrook can make these proposed improvements while still lowering the tax rate for school debt. In 2023, the current owner of a home assessed at Saddlebrook's average, $407,800, is paying an annual amount of $278 for school debt, not overall school taxes. The payback levels of that old debt will gradually decrease over the next 7 years. If the community approves the referendum, the new debt will cost that same homeowner an average of $197 per year. From 2024 through 2030, this is $81 less per year on average than what he or she is currently paying. Once the old debt is paid off, the same homeowner will continue to pay $121 per year on average. From 2031 through 2043, this will be $157 less on average than what he or she is currently paying.
So on your tax bill, it's important to remember that the school debt is part of the school portion you see in your bill. It's different than what you see for the county, township, and school operating budget. The operating budget is for salaries, benefits, transportation, tuition, and other regular expenses, while the school debt portion is just for the principal and interest on these school bonds. The two pieces, the operating budget and the school debt portion, go together and make up your school tax portion on the tax bill. And unlike last time, the last referendum in December, there will only be one question to the voters.
All right.
Now I'll turn over to
Everett.
Everett Johnson.
Thank you.
Good evening. So the state aid, as mentioned, is only available with voter approval. So as mentioned earlier, the state aid will be 40%, which will be paid by the state annually to cover 40% debt service on the bonds while they are outstanding, which according to Danielle would be a 20-year period. So that is basically, free money to the district that will only be granted if the referendum is actually approved. The bonds themselves will be sold through a competitive basis. And so what will happen is, assuming that the referendum is approved, the district will send out a document called a preliminary official statement. That document will state various information about the bond issue, the project, the district, certain metrics related to the economics, and that is distributed to underwriters who normally invest and underwrite debt for municipalities and school districts. All the underwriters will be instructed will be taking bids for the bonds on a date certain to be determined later on. And on that date, the Board of Ed will receive bids from various underwriters. The underwriter who submits the lowest bid, the lowest true interest cost or net interest cost to the Board of Ed will be the winning bidder. But during that time period, no underwriter sees the other underwriter's bid submission. And so each underwriter is bidding blindly. And so they're incentivized to submit the best bid possible to the Board of Ed. With regards to monies that once monies are issued and a bond referendum is approved, the district cannot spend that money for any other purpose other than the purpose that was approved or will be approved by the referendum. So if for some reason there's excess monies left over or available that are not needed for the project, or for some reason the Board of Ed decides not to pursue a particular portion of the project, they have to go back out again with another referendum to authorize use of those proceeds for another purpose. So they can't hide the ball. They can't just say, we're gonna issue bonds for X, Y, for this particular school and then use it for something totally different. They're restricted by the school bond law to using the bond proceeds for exactly what it's approved for in the referendum. Tony?
Thank you, Everett. Very informative. All right, it looks like we do have some questions rolling in. So remember, if you have not asked a question, if you haven't typed in a question into the chat, now is a good time to do so, and we'll start reviewing the questions at this time. So there's a question regarding Washington School. Will there be any renovations made to the first floor, or will it only be renovations to the second floor and elevator? So as Everett just shared, we cannot stray off of the wording that's in the bond referendum question. So Anthony and Matt and Mr. Karate, if you're able to help me out, I know that the ceiling and lighting on the first floor was included in the bond referendum, so definitely the ceilings and the lightings, and various doors and windows. I believe it said miscellaneous doors and windows. So we were able to do those items on the first floor as well. Is there anything I'm missing?
We're also doing some security upgrades as well, but otherwise you're correct. Ceilings and lights, some windows and some exterior doors.
Next question regarding Coolidge School. Exactly what and who will be going into that building? What's the exact usage plan for that space? So that one originally in the December bond referendum, we were talking about moving our tech offices into Coolidge School and creating a professional learning lab. And maybe some of our director offices, our director of curriculum and instruction and director of special services, and having a professional learning lab that would generate some revenue for the district. At this time, I'm not 100% sure if that is still going to be the plan moving forward, because now that we started thinking without the first referendum passing, what if we move more offices from the middle school, high school building into Coolidge School, and then we create more space here? So something that we just started talking about. But either way, the entire interior of Coolidge School does need to be renovated. The next question, if the Board of Ed has not been able to budget maintenance for items that were in the last referendum, are you going to be able to budget the maintenance for these upgrades? Mr. Karate, are you able to assist with this one?
Sure. Well, the district does budget for maintenance items, but after so many years, they do need to get replaced, or which are capital items in which they do cost a lot of money, and therefore we need to go to the referendum. The roofs last about 20 years. We do budget for repairs to the roofs, but once they reach their useful life, they need to get replaced, and that's what this referendum is doing. These are major repairs. We do budget for everyday maintenance, and that's even hard to keep up with, but we do our best with it.
Thank you. The next question is, what is the cost of the field, the turf field, and lights?
Approximately $2.2 million. And I just want to say something in addition to what Mr. Karate had said about the maintenance. The maintenance on a turf field is actually going to be less costly than it would be for a grass field. Obviously, the amount of labor and time that someone needs to go in and cut the grass, either water, fertilize, and so on. The only thing you'll need to do with a turf field would be to groom the field maybe 2 times a season. So maybe 6 times a year, you'd have to just drive a tractor over the field and groom the field. So the costs actually to maintain the turf field are actually less.
There's actually a follow-up question. For the turf field, is maintenance going to be budgeted each year, or will the Board of Ed be back in 10 years asking for replacement artificial turf? Has repairing the drainage problem and using grass been evaluated?
Well, as far as I'll let Mr. Karate handle the maintenance costs, but as far as in 10 or 12 years, if the turf needs to be replaced, the only thing that would be replaced would be the actual carpet itself. The stone would not have to be replaced. It would not have to be regraded. It's a matter of taking the infill out, and what we've done in other districts is we've when they take the infill out, we actually capture it and reuse it when they put down the new carpet. So it would only be the cost of the carpet.
And then also a follow-up to that one, who is paying for the equipment to groom the field?
It's part of the budget. It's part of the equipment. The groomer comes with the field. Every time that we specify a new field, the groomer is part of the cost. It's built into the cost of the project.
Okay. The next question. Why is it costing $3 million to renovate Coolidge when it's currently being used for offices?
As far as Coolidge goes, we're doing a complete renovation to the building. There's been very little done to that building over the past years while the municipality has been using it for offices. The plan is to put in all new ceilings, lights, flooring, new HVAC, an elevator to make it accessible. I know there's a lift right now in the back, but we want to make it more accessible in case, God forbid, someone has to get in or out of the building in an emergency with a stretcher. And so it's a complete renovation of the building, new electrical service. And that's why we budgeted the $3 million for that project.
I believe there's while we're talking about the turf, or we're talking about the turf, I'll go back to it. What kinds of fill is being used, cork or rubber?
Rubber, it's a sand and rubber mix.
And then turf is known for more injuries than grass. Is the insurance cost for school going to be raised to cover these injuries?
Well, we actually have reports and studies that were done that do show the opposite. We'd be more than happy to share them.
Thank you. Okay. Next question is updating the windows on the windows and the doors in Long Memorial Elementary and the other schools were mentioned as security updates. Are there any other security updates being proposed within the referendum? And lastly, if the referendum doesn't pass, are our children still safe without these updates? So the windows and doors being updated in each building are miscellaneous windows and doors that we had the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office come and visit each building, and they walked around and they just provided suggestions. So we're good as is, we're just trying to be better. So as far as the windows and doors go, they had various suggestions walking around the exterior of the building. And then there's also interior doors that would need to be changed up as well. The security updates that we are discussing is to create a security vestibule area in each of our buildings. So I know Franklin School currently has a true security vestibule. It was the last one that was completed. Long School has a vestibule area, but there's no window to pass items through and speak to somebody in the main office. So that's what would be included in this referendum. The middle school, high school, they have a vestibule, but they don't have a security office. So included in this referendum is a security office to be built off of the vestibule area for the same purpose, to have the window and a speaker to talk back and forth with visitors. And that's also in Washington School and to upgrade Smith School. Smith School does currently have one, but it's to upgrade that window there as well. Does anyone else have anything to add to that? Okay, thank you. Has anyone applied for grants? Has anyone looked into the funding that Governor Murphy has been offering or was offering?
Yes, the district will be looking to that as well. But that funding there are grants, and the district needs to come up with the 60% of the cost. So that's the one thing for doing this referendum. We're coming up with our portion of the costs. But the other items, if we budget for or try to go out for more of these ROD grants you saw, the regular operating district grants. Again, we have to fund the 60% through our operating budget. And that's where you get the money from. So it's kind of hard to budget 60% of costs that are millions of dollars.
Right, and the bond referendum provides guaranteed state aid and allows us to complete all of our necessary infrastructure projects. And we don't have to pick and choose which ones would fit under the criteria of the ROD grants. So I know that's a piece of it as well. Oh, how much is replacement turf?
Right now, today's cost, based on the size of the turf that we're proposing, be somewhere between 500,000 and 600,000.
Thank you. So at this time, if there's no other, this would be the perfect time to ask more questions in the chat. So at this time, please, if you have any other questions, please type them into the chat. Everyone I speak with is most troubled by the turf field. Is it too late to think about removing it to get this passed and then adding it at a later time with new funding streams?
The only thing I would add, I'll let Mr. Karate talk about funding streams, but right now, the Department of Education actually did give us some funding on that turf. If we were to do a ROD grant, we're not going to get that. So if we want to do a turf in the future, as far as the funding, the grants that are out today, nobody knows what the future is going to bring. But right now, we would not be eligible. So I think there is an advantage to doing it at this point. We've gotten the state to approve portion of that funding. And I'll let Mr. Karate, go from there.
Well, the part we can't change, can everybody hear me? Because I lost my
Yes.
mic. Can everybody? Okay. So we can't change the question that's on the March 14th ballot. Now it's too late for that. Ballots are out and the time has passed. So we are going with this one question, and the turf field is included in the total project costs.
Thank you. How are we going to prevent future costs for the lack of maintenance over the last 20 years? I remember providing repair proposal in 2007 for the second floor of Washington. So nothing has happened since then. What other space do we have that we are not utilizing?
The district does budget hundreds of thousands of dollars for maintenance. So to say that there's a lack of maintenance is totally wrong. The costs are just astronomical. I mean, the costs over the last couple of years are skyrocketed. And Washington School there's 4 large classrooms upstairs, no elevator, no bathrooms upstairs. 2 of the rooms are used for storage, and 2 of the rooms years ago were renovated to make offices up there for our child study team. So they were used for many years up there. So again, money was put into it, work was done, but they need to be renovated in order to meet the state requirements to have a classroom and have students up there, which will include the bathrooms. But again, the district in our operating budget has hundreds of thousands of dollars in there for maintenance, but the cost to maintain the district, I mean, just in the last couple of days, a couple of things I had to do were thousands of dollars. It's just very costly to maintain the district's old buildings.
And the bathrooms are now mandatory for preschool. You need to have a bathroom inside the classroom. And then what other space do we have? We don't have other space. We've actually converted storage closets to offices in our buildings for our child study team members. There's no space. We have instruction taking place in some hallways. So as far as space that we're not utilizing, we don't have any that we are not utilizing. How will the lights on the football field be installed so they do not shine into any of the houses on Southwest Wing Avenue?
So the new lights for the field will be LED fixtures. The benefit of going with the LEDs nowadays is the technology has advanced that we can direct the light down to the field. The amount that we can cut the light off past the fixture has far improved since the older technology. It's no longer almost like a floodlight on the side of a building that will be shining outwards. The new LED fixtures will be shining down to the field. So it is directed a lot more towards the field than the old technology.
So I know that how can I vote by mail? Check your vote by mail status by contacting the office of the Bergen County Clerk at 201-336-7020, or you can email countyclerk@co.bergen.nj.us. If you're not signed up for vote by mail, you can submit an application by Tuesday, March 7th. You will then receive a vote by mail ballot at your home, and it must be postmarked for return by March 14th. Oh, I see one other question. If administration moves into Coolidge, will that open space for more room for students? Is that in the budget? If administration moves into Coolidge, then we would have more space where we wouldn't be sharing classrooms here at the middle school, high school. That would be the purpose. I know we had a lot of questions about the turf field. Just so that everyone's aware, we are one of the very few Bergen County districts without a turf field. I want to say there might be 4 left in Bergen County. I don't know if Chris or Matt or Anthony, if you know the exact numbers. I thought it was 4 that were left.
I don't know the exact number in Bergen County. We did just do a turf field last year in Morris County. I believe that was the last district in Morris County to not have one. But I believe the numbers are similar in Bergen.
Yeah, it's more, I would say it's uncommon to still have grass. The majority of the schools have gone to the turf. And again, as Matt stated, the main reason is because of the extended use of the field. You get a tremendous amount more use out of that field when you're able to go on it 5 minutes after it rains, or the minute the snow melts off of it. So the students, and the other nice thing is band competitions. The marching band can have competitions there, and it helps them raise funds for their marching band. I had a daughter who was in the marching band, so I'm a big fan. It benefits everyone in the school.
That's a good point, Anthony, because currently our marching band rents a light and they drag it over to the 50-yard line and put it up so they can try to get as much space out of the rent me light as they can, and they get their practices once the soccer games and everything else is over in the fall. So yeah, it would be a dynamite opportunity for them to walk out and not have to worry about field conditions and know that the lights are on till X amount of time, and it would, just like I said, help everyone.
And at the same time, every district that we have worked with, there is, a curfew. Okay, no one's going to be out there till midnight on the field. So, everyone is, we all want to be good neighbors.
One other point too about the field as far as safety is concerned, as part of the installation of the turf itself, we will, and we always, anytime we install a turf field, we do what's called a GMAX test. It's a test to test the hardness of the field. And personally, I've been involved in over a dozen turf installations. I've never seen a GMAX test fail. The product that we specify is extremely safe.
Does the enrollment we have at the middle school, high school justify the cost for the field? So yes, it absolutely does. And the activities that we have, we're starting a boys lacrosse team again at the high school this year. So we definitely, we have a lot of athletic events that are also canceled due to the way our grass field is. So having the,
Are-
go ahead, Chris.
I'm sorry, I was gonna say our participation numbers have been going up steadily since actually we got back from our COVID, disaster. So it's been very pleasing to see the amount of kids that are coming out and trying out for the teams. We are adding the boys lacrosse team again because of the numbers. We're having a couple lower level sports have teams that are actually being full schedules, playing same days, opposite sites than the varsity, which says a lot about how many kids are actually playing. I can't tell you how much it would help our daily phys ed classes due to the fact of being stuck in the gym with minimal amount of space. Being able to go outside in the fresh air, and like you said, it doesn't have to be, a super nice day all the time, and it could be in between rain and, as long as it's not thundering and lightning or snow on that field, it is usable. And that can be sanctioned off into at least 2 or 3 teaching spots, in order to get, our middle school kids out there, our high school kids out there. We're able to separate them if they're in the phys ed classes at the same time. So, yeah, and like you said, there aren't many. 2, 3, 4 tops are left in the county, and you can see it on our kids' faces when we walk into these facilities. Elmwood Parks, Garfield's going to have it. Lodi's turf field. All of the fields that we're walking onto have these newer surfaces. They're updated. They're fresh, and you know what I mean. And then we come back and we do not look like we should.
And there's also, mental health is such a big thing right now. And it's also the mental health of our students to be able to go to a Friday night game where the student section is large and they have a sense of belonging somewhere. That's also important as well. Whereas, I attend games now and there might be 4 students that are together in a section. So it's just also a different way about it as well that would support our students' mental health. Will security cameras be put in place for the new field? We currently have security cameras there. Mr. Karate, is there anything for you to add?
You're right, correct. We do have cameras there. We could add more in the future if needed, but we do have enough security cameras for the field.
And is the track remaining or being replaced? The track is remaining.
Correct.
Okay, I kind of jumped around here. I was trying to.
No, just one thing on the, because I know there's a lot of questions on the turf field. And it was said before, I mean, I hope everybody's not just thinking this of like just one Friday night game. We do have multiple sports that play on it. The phys ed classes, like Mr. Ianello said, there'll be tremendous use. Don't think the district is like an NFL team stadium. We do not have a grounds crew like they do. I know NFL players want to push back to it. You've seen over the years, they do replay. I mean, they've had games where it was muddy the week before in a playoff game and they planted grass the next week. We do not have those kind of facilities, manpower, and money. So like Mr. Arnell says, I mean, everybody's going to get on the field after a rain, after a snow melts, you're on there. I've watched my own son play lacrosse games. They have a turf field in their district, and they go out to, a couple of their games during the year, or maybe played, Sussex or even Western Morris, and they play in a grass field, and you could see the difference, with the players. It's just so hard to play grass. I mean, you need that field to be maintained like an NFL field for that level playing surface. So I just hope everybody thinks about that. And also, like, if you have a lacrosse game on a weekend before graduation and it's a rainy day and it gets ripped up, I mean, your graduation's looking like, you could fill in the word wherever you want, but it just doesn't look good. We could use this for many reasons. And at $2.2 million with turf and lights, and part of this whole $14 million package, it's not a lot. Of course, every dollar is a lot, but you got to look at the whole scheme of things and hope everybody really, really looks at that.
Thank you. All right, moving on to Coolidge School. How many offices and rooms would be at Coolidge? Will the basement be renovated as well where the old TV studio is? And can we review more options to use Coolidge School so that the children can benefit? Moving admin's great, but we need to maximize the space based on the amount going into it. So as I shared, if the bond referendum gets passed, then we'll be working closely with the architects and our team in order to develop Coolidge School a little bit more. It's not a very large space. So I'm not sure when someone's talking about a place for the children. I'm not sure what that would look like or what you're envisioning with that, but the thought was to move some of us out of the buildings to create space for our children. But we can certainly talk about that further. If this referendum does not get voter approval, does that mean that instead of state aid to help with these upgrades, will the district have to raise taxes for these upgrades, and therefore it'll cost the voters more in the long run?
Big yes.
Do you want to explain it a little
Yeah.
bit more?
Right. So like we said before, 29% of the total $14 million project costs they're asking for, the state's going to pay for up to 29% of those costs. If we don't do this, these projects need to get done as soon as possible, but it'll be done over many years, and it'll be in the budget, and you will pay 100% of the cost instead of getting those monies from the state, and everybody paid for that in their taxes. So we've said this before, is why not get some of that pot of money? Why are we not going to take advantage of that and pay 100% of the costs? You may get a rod grant or two. Again, we're not going to make any progress getting the products that we need done. And if you look at go back, the state probably has them on their website. I was at a workshop where there were 44 districts in the state of New Jersey that asked referendum questions just the past year alone, the 5 times you could ask. 44 districts went out for questions, all various amounts, a lot of capital projects like we're doing here. 38 of them passed. At that time frame, we were one of the 6 that didn't. But if you look time after time again, there's 8, 9, 10 districts getting approved every time that they could ask a referendum question. To get this kind of money, this debt service aid money, it's the only time you could do it, and is very beneficial to the residents. I know it seems like a big hit now, but this is spread over many years that you'll be paying this back. It's not again hit next year.
If I can add one thing to what Mr. Karate just said, was over the years, in future years, if you want to do this, and you want to do $14 million worth of projects, you're going to pay $14 million unless another ROD grant program were to come forward. ROD grant programs do not come out every year. We've just had one that's opened up, and we've waited 5 years since the past one. So, if you were to do this work, it would have to come out of your capital reserve. And think about how long it takes to save up $14 million in capital reserve money. It would take a lot more than 20 years to get to all these projects. And that's the reason. And as somebody said in the past past referendum, everyone else in the state is getting their share. Okay, Saddlebrook is entitled to also get their share. And the only way you're going to be able to do it is to go out to this referendum.
And if I may add on those ROD grants, there's a pot of money, and it's open to every district in the state of New Jersey. The deadline for filing is by May. I think it's May 1st. And they're going to prioritize the projects. There's a whole list of 14 or 16 different areas, and they're going to prioritize, and they're focusing on 1, 2, and 3, which is like roofs and windows, but like even security items were a little bit down on the list. So depending on how much comes in, you're not even guaranteed some of your projects would even get done. If they run out of money, they run out of money. And the ROD, I don't remember last time they did ROD grants. It's been a while now. They don't come out every year. So this funding is not going to be available, even if we were able to afford it. So I don't know. I mean, I said every district is pushed many years ago. And I guess when I first got into school districts in this business administration, there used to be a little a mechanism in the budget that you could, again, you're paying 100%, but you're able to do in the budget, raise taxes. So you put a capital project in there for $1 million. Yes, it's going to bring taxes up. You're paying it, but you got it done. Everything now is in 2% tax levy cap. There are some waivers for increasing the 2%, but it's on benefits, an increased enrollment. It's not for capital projects. So they've kind of handcuffed the districts to doing this. You're going to a referendum to the voters to ask for more money every so many years. I hate to say that, but I mean, it's the only way to, to do it and get part of this debt service funding.
How long will it take to complete the project? Will likely begin in the summer of 2024. Is that correct?
Yes,
The maintenance projects, right? And then they'll be completed that year or the following year, depending on the specific project.
correct.
And what about the field?
The field we'll have to talk about if, hopefully this referendum gets passed. We would like to see it start right after the fall season. And then this way by spring, we'll be up and ready to go. That's what we would like. But again, we're keeping our fingers crossed the referendum passes. And if it does, then we'll sit down and go over the schedule. But we would hope that we'll start right after the fall season's over.
Thank you. I read that if the referendum does not pass, it is my understanding that the following could potentially happen. Schedule changes at the high school and elimination of more electives, reduction of academic support program, eliminate middle school activities, increasing activity fees, eliminate specialty choice programs and reconfigure school grade levels, less individual attention for students, higher fees, fewer teachers and staff, and reductions in critical supports for students who struggle. Could this potentially happen, even at least one of these? So yes, if the bond referendum does not pass, then yes, we have to fund the funds in our local budget, and the school budget is extremely limited. As Mr. Crotty shared, 2%, and most of that is our salaries and benefits. So you're looking at the elimination of staff, you're looking at the elimination of programs as we need to budget for more of these building items. Does anybody else have anything to add?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the future for referendums and major costs for the town over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, this referendum would help us greatly, just like the one did in 2014, a smaller referendum, but it chipped away at some of the long list that we have. I mean, does this referendum fix everything? No, there's still more to do. And in 5 to 10 years, there's going to be, more roofs to change. So, and so we can get that money in the budget and cycle it through, could there be another referendum 10, 15 years from now? Yes, I don't have a crystal ball, but there, like I said before, there's really not a lot of ways to get money in our general budget for capital, these large capital items.
And then why wait to start in 2024 because costs will be going up again? So what if we plan to get done sooner and save money? Maybe Everett or Anthony and Michael, Matthew, sorry, you want to explain the bond process?
Yeah, sure. So if the referendum passes, the first thing we need to do is go into the design phase. Anything that we've done up to this point is only schematic in order to get Department of Education approval. You wouldn't want us designing all this and charging the district our design fees if, God forbid it doesn't pass. So once we get approval, we go into the design phase and we have to go out to bid. There's that process. And then, at that point, very little. I mean, we could try to get something done, maybe some roofing done this coming summer. Anything that we can get done, we're going to make every attempt to get done this summer, believe me. But the majority of it will have to wait until the summer of 2024.
And one other thing to add as far as bidding projects go, and then I'll let Everett discuss the selling of the bonds. We will likely, if the referendum is to pass, we'll get started on the design, immediately, and we may very well start bidding projects sooner than later, because the reality is with all these ROD grant projects happening in the next few years, costs are likely to continue to rise. So in order to beat that and, as the question states, save as much money as possible, we will try to bid projects as soon as possible. But the actual construction itself, the work itself we'll likely have to then wait until the following summer, only because, we have to wait until the buildings are not occupied. But we will try to go out to bid to lock in the prices as quickly as we can.
From a legal perspective, the next step for us would be to have the board pass another resolution that would authorize the actual issuance of the bonds. And that resolution will provide certain details related to the bond issue in terms of authorizing certain actions of the board, authorizing the board to obtain a rating for the bonds, authorizing the district to actually issue the official statement that I mentioned earlier when I spoke. And that's a document that will go out to bidders that will detail the project, the specifics of the project, the Board of Ed, the finances of the school district, and other information that's relevant to bidders who will bid on the bonds. So we'll get started drafting that along with the financial advisor and your auditor, who will also prepare the audit financial statements to be included within the document. Then we'll proceed to sell the bonds on a date certain. And before all of that, we'll also create a timetable working with the business administrator and the financial advisor, detailing all the specific steps that we will need to undertake from the point of the whole referendum being approved to the actual issues of bonds, with dates and action steps to be taken along the way. So we'll be working with the Board of Ed to keep everyone informed in every step.
I just want to quickly mention that we expect to sell the bonds essentially as quickly as we can after the referendum passes. That process takes approximately 2 months. And at that time, we'll be able to lock in the interest rate.
Yeah.
And if I may add, sorry,
Yeah.
if I may add, and I don't know if we'll ever get back to the way it was, but normally through a budget cycle, if we were a budget for a project, April, May, the architects did the bids, and we did a lot of projects over the summer. And that's when you want to do the projects when the students aren't in the building. But I'm just looking at one project, the HVAC at Franklin and Smith School. We awarded the bid in February of 22. They're still installing the units now, a year later. We have to work around everybody's schedule with the students, and there's just delay after delay. So there's no more like, oh, we could do it now and get it done this summer. We're not going to wait. Like I said before, we're going to start working on these things, bid them and try to time them out where they can be done when students are in the buildings, or at least take advantage of spring breaks, winter breaks, where they could get in there and work a week and get some of the items done. But it's hard to do major construction while the students are in the building. So I said, well, this stuff, so I don't want everybody to think that we're going to just sit around and wait till the summer of 24. We're going to try to do whatever we can. There's just certain things we can't. There's delays everywhere, and we're experiencing now with pretty much everything we do.
One other thing I want to add just really quickly is that, they've mentioned going out for bids, and we have to do that. But just want to be clear to everyone here that we're not able to issue bonds in any amount above the amounts approved by bid or referendum. So we're restricted to those amounts. So whatever the bids come back at, that's the most we can borrow. We can borrow less, but we can borrow more. Just want to be clear on that.
Right. And there is cushion built in for the fluctuation.
Absolutely.
Thank you. One more question, well, maybe not one more, but another question for, I think, Anthony. Is this full union, or are you allowing open shop prevailing wage contractors?
By law, we have to allow prevailing wage. So we go out to bid, and if the contractor's union contractor, that's fine. If he's not, that's also permitted, but they must pay the prevailing wage. They have to send us certified payrolls to show that they're paying the prevailing wage. But anytime you spend public funds, we're bound to that law.
Another question, what happens to the projects if the grant money is not there or used up? So as far as state aid, the state has been providing aid for school districts with voter approved referenda for years. The state has already reviewed these projects and promised this amount to us, to Saddlebrook, if the voters do approve it. All state taxpayers pay into this, and the money only gets distributed to districts with voter approval at the polls. And there's nothing that we have right now to indicate that the state aid money will dry up.
Yes, it's different than the ROD grants we were talking before, this debt service aid and the ROD grant are two different pots of money. So I said before, like, there might not be enough money for other projects you want to do with the ROD grants. That's because that's the pot of money. I think it was $350 million. When that runs out, it runs out, not with these referendum monies, which was just explained.
Thank you. I believe at this time that answers all the questions. Are there any other questions if anyone wants to type into the chat? So thank you to all of our presenters for sharing their expertise on our Saddlebrook School District's March 14th bond referendum. Remember that if you have a question, you may email. It was just on the slide that I was looking at that was up there, sorry. Referendum 2023@sbpsnj.org. We also have our website, and the website is sbpsnj.org/referendum. And again, that website has different pages on it. There's a frequently asked question page, there's project and voting information. The polls are going to be open from 1 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, March 14th. So again, the polls are open starting at 1 p.m. We do have a single session day that day on March 14th for our students. So our middle school, high school students leave around 12:30 and our elementary students leave right at 1 o'clock. So that's the earliest that we're able to have voting on that day. Oh, there was one more question. How much are the architects costing?
I'll comment on that. We agreed to 6% on all the different projects, even though it's going to be multiple projects and it's not just one project. Regardless, we usually have a sliding scale, and the lowest we go to is 6%, but we've agreed to do that across the board for all the projects.
Thank you. Any other questions before we end this forum? All right. So on that slide, you can see our website and the email, and then you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Those are our tags. We do try to post as much as possible to keep the community updated. I want to thank our presenters for sharing their insights tonight with me, and also to the Saddlebrook community for joining us and asking questions to learn more about the bond referendum. It is much appreciated that you attend and that you ask your questions and come to us. So if you have further questions, please email us and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thank you.